He never told anyone his real name. Not the gas station clerk who poured his coffee every morning. Not the woman who lived across the gravel road with the broken porch light. Not even the mailman who waved every week and always asked how the fishing was. To them, he was just Rick. Rick lived on the edge of town, where the roads turned to dust and the trees stopped pretending they were part of a forest. He kept to himself, didn't ask questions, didn't answer many either. People said he used to be military. The way he walked, too quiet. The way he scanned a room, too precise. Some said he was just a hunter who'd lost someone. Others thought he was a drifter, laying low. Rick didn't correct any of them. He didn't care what they believed so long as they didn't look too close. He woke every morning before the sun, made his coffee, strong, black, did 50 push-ups, stretched, listened to the silence like it was a song only he remembered the lyrics to. He didn't own a TV, didn't have a computer. His phone was prepaid and never left the cabin. He had no family photos on the walls. Just one thing hung above his bed, a small cracked compass, not for direction, for memory. 10 years ago, Rick had a name with rank attached. Sergeant First Class Richard Hayes, Special Reconnaissance, attached to a unit whose name didn't show up on any payroll. Their missions were the kind the government never acknowledged. And Rick, he was the guy who ended things from half a mile away, before anyone else even knew something had started. He had 43 confirmed kills, twice as many unconfirmed, and one ghost he'd never buried. That ghost had a name. Mendoza. Rick hadn't said the name out loud in years, but he never forgot it. It was the last name in a small leather-bound notebook tucked beneath a floorboard under his bed. Every other name had a line through it. Mendoza's didn't. The day started like any other. He walked into town, bought canned beans and black coffee, nodded to the clerk without speaking. There was a new car outside the store. SUV, black, tinted windows. Rick noted the plate number without thinking. Old habit. 3 numbers, 3 letters, then a state tag that didn't match the bumper sticker. Suspicious, but he said nothing. The man inside the car never got out. Rick didn't look directly, but in the glass reflection, he saw the angle of the rearview mirror, tilted just enough to keep eyes on the store door. He took his time, didn't change pace. When he stepped outside, the SUV drove off. No engine rev, no tires squealing, just quiet retreat. That was the first sign. The second came the next morning. Rick found a small package on his porch. No return address, no postage. He opened it carefully, box cutter in hand. Inside was a photograph. A teenage girl, blonde, standing in front of what looked like a school entrance, taped to the back. "Do you still see from that far?" That was the message. Short, loaded. Rick burned the photo, then dug up the floorboard. The notebook was still there, dusty, untouched. He flipped to the back page, Mendoza's name, no line through it. He stared at it for a long while, then stood, unlocked the closet he hadn't touched in years. Inside, a long, black case. Steel latches, a custom-modded M40 rifle with a silencer still wrapped in cloth. He opened it, not to use, just to see if it still felt like it belonged in his hands. It did. That night he didn't sleep. He paced the edge of his property in silence, barefoot, watched the road from a crawl position behind the fence. No car came, but he knew the game had started, and it was personal. The next day, a local paper in town had a small article. Teen girl missing in New Jersey. Photo matched the one in the package. No leads. Police baffled. Rick bought the paper, folded it carefully, and returned to his cabin. He spread the paper, photo burned out of it, and marked the school name. He knew that place. Not directly, but someone from his unit had retired near there. Someone Rick thought was long gone. He booted up an old laptop. No internet, just one USB port and an encrypted OS he'd installed years ago. He opened a local-only tracker program, searched name after name. Dead, dead, unknown. Then one pinged. Mendoza. Last seen 10 years ago. No activity, but a flash signature on a deep server in Arizona. registered under a Shell research firm. Rick's eyes narrowed. It wasn't just a photo. It was a challenge. He looked back at the rifle. And this time, he didn't just hold it. He began to clean it. He packed light. One canvas duffel, rifle disassembled and wrapped in oilcloth, binoculars, 3 burner phones, 2 military maps, creased but readable, and the USB marked final. No food, no goodbye, just the gravel under his boots and the faint scent of desert dust rising in the air. He took back roads, no highways, no stops where cameras might catch his plate. It was instinctual. He didn't need GPS. He didn't need music. Just the sound of wind pushing through the cracks in his window, and the feel of old scars tightening as the air dried out. The girl's photo was still fresh in his mind. Not just her face, but the way the message was worded. Do you still see from that far? Only one person ever said that to him. Not in combat, not in a mission, but in a briefing room. 2009, 2 days before Rick's last kill. His name had been Mendoza, lieutenant commander back then. Sharp eyes, always chewing on mints instead of gum. He had a way of making silence feel loud, not with shouting, but with pressure. Rick never liked him, but he followed orders. Until that last one. That op had gone sideways. Target neutralized, but the wrong people were in the blast radius. Rick wanted to abort. Mendoza said, "Stay on mission." Rick hesitated. The moment passed. Then came the fallout. Mendoza disappeared. The mission was erased. Rick was pulled from the field, debriefed by men in suits instead of uniforms. Then they handed him an honorable discharge and told him to forget everything. He didn't, not really. He buried it, deep, under quiet, under porch repairs and coffee routines and miles of empty woods. But ghosts don't rot, they wait. And Mendoza's ghost was alive. 3 states and 27 hours later, Rick parked behind an abandoned gas station near the New Mexico border. The laptop still worked, barely. He cracked open the casing, ran a bypass, plugged in the encrypted USB. No passwords. It auto-launched. Inside, one folder, labeled Echo. Inside that, 2 files. A map of a research facility in Arizona, a video labeled unknowndebrief.mp4. He opened the video, grainy, body cam footage. Mendoza, speaking into a recorder. His voice was calm. "They think I'm dead. Good. Some names aren't meant to go on walls. Rick, if you ever see this, it means they made me surface again. You need to finish what we started." The file ended there. No context, no explanation. Just Mendoza, talking like he expected to be hunted, or found. Rick copied the coordinates from the map, burned the USB in a rusted trash barrel behind the gas station. Then he waited. Not long. Within the hour, a black sedan passed by. Tinted windows, slowed at the corner, didn't stop. Rick stepped back into shadow, hand on the grip of his sidearm. The car kept going. Test run, they knew he was here. He moved at night, avoided cities. At one motel, he checked in with a fake ID he hadn't used in years. At another, he used cash and never left his room during daylight. On the 4th night, he reached the perimeter. The facility from the map wasn't abandoned. It looked like it was. Cracked pavement, broken signage, weeds pushing through the chain-link fence. But Rick saw the details. Tire tracks less than 24 hours old. Security cameras disguised as broken bulbs. Infrared motion detectors painted to blend into the siding. Professional, but not military, private, and sloppy. He found a ridge half a mile away, set up his observation post, used the tripod, not the rifle, binoculars only. He counted 3 patrols, 1 perimeter shift every 6 hours. They rotated in an odd pattern, meant to look random, but it wasn't. Inside, a 3rd-story window had light every night between 2 and 3:30 a.m. He watched, night after night, until he saw him. Mendoza, older, heavier, but the walk, the posture, the pause at the coffee mug, all the same. Still alive, still in command, and not surprised, like he expected Rick to find him, like this was part of the plan. Rick returned to the motel, drew maps by hand, sketched entry points, calculated wind for every shooting angle. But the more he planned, the more one question crawled into his mind. Why Emily? Why a girl from New Jersey? Why send her picture if she wasn't connected? Unless she was bait. He ran a search through his military files, offline, searched for the Carter name. 2 hits, both irrelevant. He kept digging, found a school database tied to a high school journalism club. Emily Carter, junior year. Podcast project. Voices you don't hear. Stories from veterans you'll never meet. She had posted in a forum, looking to speak to someone off record, someone from a ghost unit. Rick read the post 3 times. Then he saw it. A reply. From a burner account with military slang only a few would recognize. Rick recognized it. Mendoza. Rick didn't react right away. He just stared at the screen. At the reply Mendoza had left. It was short. Just 4 words. You still watching, Hayes? Not a threat, not even a challenge. Just a reminder that Rick was never really out. He'd just been shelved, like a round in the chamber waiting. He traced the IP address, routed through 5 proxies. One of them hit a data center in Arizona. Same region as the facility. Sloppy. Too easy. Rick smelled a trap, but also a leak. Mendoza wanted him to find this. He wanted the story to stay in motion, which meant Emily wasn't just bait. She was leverage, or worse, insurance. Rick returned to his perch at the ridge, watched the facility again. That 3rd-story window still glowed between 2 and 3:30 a.m. Sometimes figures moved. Once Rick saw Mendoza pacing. But tonight was different. At 2:19 a.m., a van pulled up behind the building. 2 men, tactical vests, moving fast, professional. From the side door, they pulled someone out. Small frame, blonde hair, blindfolded. Emily. Rick lowered the binoculars. His hands were steady, but his jaw was locked. They had her. He didn't know for how long, didn't know if she'd seen anything, said anything. Didn't matter. Now it was extraction time. He didn't move that night. He observed, marked entry points, logged every step, counted patrol intervals. By dawn, he had the full blueprint memorized, but he still needed backup. This wasn't a one-man job anymore, not with a civilian involved. He powered up the emergency sat line in his duffel. One contact, someone who owed him. He typed a single message. Echo has surfaced, civilian compromised, coordinates attached, silent extraction, 12 hours. He shut the device, buried it under loose rock. If they came, they came. If not, he'd go in alone. 10 hours passed. Then headlights. Far side of the ridge. 3 vehicles, no markings, standard off-grid comm gear. He smiled, just a little. Some ghosts still honored favors. The man who stepped out was tall, lean, former Delta. Rick had trained him once, long ago. He gave Rick a nod. What's the play? Rick didn't waste time. In and out. No fire unless necessary. I get her. You cover my exfil. If I don't come out, finish it. The younger man hesitated. You sure? Rick looked him dead in the eye. I was done 10 years ago. This is just cleanup. The plan moved fast. Team inserted from the north side. Rick from the utility tunnel he'd mapped 2 nights earlier. It smelled like rust and damp paper. Every step was silent. Every breath counted. He reached the lower sublevel. Empty. Good. He climbed a maintenance ladder. Mendoza. He was speaking, not to her, to someone on a call. Yes, she's here. No, she hasn't seen anything useful. It doesn't matter, he's on site, that's all we needed. Pause. No, don't touch her. Not yet. Rick moved to the hallway, closed the distance, pistol drawn, silencer attached. He saw the door, half open. Inside, Emily tied to a chair. Mendoza pacing. No one else in view. Rick waited, breathed, stepped through. Let her go. Mendoza didn't flinch. He turned slowly. There you are. Rick kept the pistol leveled. This ends now. Mendoza raised his hands, halfway. If you shoot me, the team outside moves in. She dies. Rick smirked. You don't have a team. I do. And then, flashbang, from the window. White light, sharp crack. Rick moved, dropped one of Mendoza's guards as he came through a side door. Rolled forward, cut Emily loose. Can you walk? She nodded, terrified but focused. Rick led her out. Hallways now swarming. Shots fired behind them. Suppressors muted the chaos, but death was in the air. Rick didn't look back. He never did. Outside, his team held the perimeter. Emily was rushed to the vehicle, secured, covered. Rick stayed behind. Just for a moment, he turned back toward the building. Mendoza was still alive, coughing, bleeding, cornered. Rick walked in slow, calm, no weapon raised. Why? Rick asked. Mendoza laughed, then coughed. You always needed a reason. That's your weakness. Rick crouched. You always needed a witness. That's yours. Then he stood, turned his back, walked out. They left the compound in flames. No bodies recovered. No headlines printed. Just one missing girl found 2 states away, rescued by an anonymous tip. That night, Rick sat at a bus stop 2 towns over. No bags, no ID, just a burned thumb drive in his pocket and a fresh blister on his heel. Rick didn't sleep that night. He sat alone on a rusted bench outside a gas station that hadn't worked in 10 years. Sky above him, gray, unsympathetic. Wind tugging at the corners of his jacket. Eyes open, but unfocused. The job was done. The girl was safe. The fire was lit. So why did it still feel unfinished? He watched a dog limp across the road, sniffing at the remains of someone's old life. Rick understood that look. Not hungry, just lost. That was the problem with ghosts. You never really knew if they were gone or just waiting for you to blink. The morning came cold and silent. No news on the compound. No alerts, no retaliation. Mendoza had disappeared again, this time for good. Whether dead or hiding, didn't matter. The mission was over. But the war, the one inside Rick, still pacing, still loading the next round. He took the next bus north. No ID check, no one looked twice. He wore a hat low over his face and pretended to sleep. But his mind was cataloging every face on board, just in case, always in case. By evening, he reached a small lakeside town in Montana. He remembered it from a recon years ago. Population under 1,000, one sheriff, no cameras, no questions. He paid for a week at the local inn, with cash, took the room closest to the emergency exit. Window view, trees, perfect. In the room, he unpacked only 2 things, the compass and the notebook. The compass was still cracked, still pointed true. The notebook lighter now. Just one name remained, but it had a line through it. Mendoza. He took a breath, then tore the page out, burned it in the sink. Watched the ash swirl and vanish. Gone. Finally. Rick spent his days walking the trails behind the inn. Mornings were quiet, evenings quieter. People saw him, nodded, moved on. Exactly how he liked it. He built no routine, no habits. Habits got men like him killed. But on the 4th morning, something unusual happened. The front desk rang his room. You have a visitor. Rick paused. No one should know he was here. He went down cautious, hand in jacket. At the front desk, a teenage girl stood waiting, blonde, wide-eyed, wearing a red windbreaker. Emily. She smiled nervously. I found you. Rick didn't move. How? She held up a small notebook, hers. Journalism, remember? You saved me. I had to find out why. Rick exhaled, half amused, half concerned. You're not supposed to be here. Emily nodded. I know, but I wanted to say thank you, properly. Rick looked past her. No tails, no cars, just her. They sat outside on the bench. Same wind, same sky, different silence. She spoke first. Was it worth it? Rick didn't answer immediately. He looked at the trees. What part? All of it, he thought. Some of it, enough of it, not all. Then nodded, slowly. Then handed him something. A folded photo. Hers. Same one from the box. but this time she had written something on the back. You saw further than anyone else. Rick stared at it, then folded it again and tucked it in his pocket. You need to go, Emily. I will. No interviews, no stories. I know. No more looking for men like me. She smiled gently. That's not what I'm looking for anymore. She left without another word, got in a bus, disappeared into the world again. Rick watched the bus turn the corner and vanish behind the hills, then stood and walked the other way. The innkeeper never saw him again, neither did the townsfolk. No one noticed when the room key was left on the pillow or when the compass disappeared from the windowsill. But every so often, in places where silence feels heavier than air, someone swears they saw a man in a flannel shirt walk through the edge of the woods, pause, and vanish. Not running, not hiding, just moving, like wind between trees. And sometimes, on the darkest nights, when trouble stirs in quiet towns, a single bullet ends it before anyone even knows it began. He never came back, because he never left. Not really. He just learned to live inside the echo.